I just want to talk briefly. There's a lot going on as we're in session, legislative session. Again, on the voucher plan, just to give you a summary of what's happened this week, a bill hit, stayed up for about an hour, and then was taken down. But that bill got captured, and I've looked at that bill. Another bill was filed I was looking at today. It appears to be a caption bill, I'm afraid. But that bill says something that maybe I don't know. When we get language, I will have a better response. Everything I've continued to see tells me that I do not think this is a solution for our issues in education. I've got a lot of questions, concerns. When I get to language, I probably will, based on what I've seen so far out of the bill and the actions, probably ask for a resolution. You can vote that up or vote it down. My position has not changed yet. Don't think it will change. Got even more concerns as some things I'm seeing come out. And the big two things, we're a public school system. We're not perfect. We better fight for accountability and funding. And I've lived it for 30 years, really the last 20. But all this accountability, and you're telling me now that don't matter now, and we're going to take more funding than we're giving you per student and move it. I can't get on board with that. And we'll never get on board with that. Now, I've been asked, is there room for compromise? Well, yeah, bring us to the table. We've not been at the table. It's amazing how everybody decides what's best for educators except educators. And so when I get that bill, be prepared for me to ask you for a resolution in opposition, but I want to go specific items and point out how it could impact Wilson County schools. And it could have an impact. But really alarmed at no accountability. And we teach all kids, regardless of where they were at last night, or regardless of what their needs are or their deficiencies. And that's what I believe the role of public education is for. And so it's interesting. It's hard to watch because it's complicated. Seeing all this stuff, I want to see the bill. We're in session, but deadline's up for them to be filed. I want to see the bill language. And I'm still not concrete that bill language has been filed. I would encourage you to talk to your legislators. Where's it at? This push was made, and I hope it's not going to be a last hour, last week. What are we talking about? But at that point in time, I will not do it until I see the language, because I don't operate off of assumptions, and I want to see the language. What are we talking about? But what we have seen have some major concerns, and I told you earlier, if you want to talk me down, talk to me. But I believe that we need to really stand up and take a look at how this could impact our school system in the future.
I guess the thing that bothers me the most about all this that's taking place down there in the State House is, anybody that cares about public education needs to be concerned about what they're doing down there. We need to be treated fairly, just like everybody else is. And why should we be held to standards that they're not going to hold? And according to what the governor himself said, they won't be held to the same standards as we are. They won't have to do the testing that we do, and that kind of thing. And, just treat us all the same way. If they're not going to hold them accountable for test scores and stuff, then take that away from us too. But I like the fact that we're being held to a standard. That makes you want to do your job and exceed what people expect of you. But and we all know why that they did that. in order to get the private schools to come on board with that, they had to make some concessions. And that's one of the things that they don't want to do. They don't want to be held to the same standards that we are. And don't get me wrong, I have family members that have gone to private schools, and that was the choice that they made, and I supported them in that, and I will continue to support our private schools here within our county, and their students and their families. That's their choice, and I'm all about that. All I'm asking us is that the Wilson County Board of Education and every other public school system across the great state of Tennessee is treated fairly. And we all operate off the same place. You know, whenever you take the football field on Friday night, you're all playing by the same rules, regardless of who you are. And that's all I'm asking for. Let's all play by the same rules. And if our legislators and our governor want to see this done, then that's what they need to do. We all need to play by the same rules. But they had to make some concessions to get these people to come on board to agree to take some of these students. And we all know who they're going to take. I've said this before. They're going to take the best and the brightest and the best athletes. They're not going to take somebody like me. You know?
Thank you for that. And again, and I would say, this is not about, I think we've got some fine private schools in our county. I do.
We do. Sure we do.
I know a lot of those people professionally. This is not about that.
No.
But I think it's our duty, if we're going to work and be in public education, we should support education, public education. I guess that's, and I cannot sit by and see our teachers that have worked so hard, had so much pressure on them, our kids. I mean, the amount of testing we do is unbelievable. And it's mandated, the majority of it. And to think that all of a sudden this accountability don't matter. That, that ain't what are we doing? What have we been doing? And so it's not about the private school. No. I talk to those people on a regular basis, got a lot of respect for them. But the accountability piece, I just can't, I can't believe. And I'm beginning to hear from a lot of parents, I can't believe it either. When they say, you mean what? Because they're the ones that live through this TCAP 6 weeks a year, or whatever it is. They see it. You know, if you want to look at what's best for education, let's have those discussions. But I just can't. And again, if we're going to be a part of public education, we should support it. And I believe that wholeheartedly.
Well, when we ran for these jobs and we were elected, we took an oath that said that we was going to uphold the duties and obligations of the public school system, Wilson County Schools. And if, whenever you did that, you put your name out there and you put yourself on the line, you're going to stand up for it. So we don't need to sit here on our hands and just like we're in some kind of la-la land and hoping that this is all not happening, because it's happening right in front of our eyes every day. Like you said, Jeff, we will know a lot more when we see the final language, and that's probably when we'll really be able to get mad and jump up and down. But as long as you're sitting in this seat, and if you're out there, you're contemplating running for the position here, if you don't have the courage to stand up for the Wilson County schools and the boys and the girls and the parents that you're going to represent, then you don't have any business running, or we don't have any business sitting here.
I'd like to address the testing issue that Mr. Luttrell brought up. I've been going to the legislature pretty much every time they have a committee meeting, and I'm meeting with legislators. One of the comments that was made during one of the committee meetings was that the school districts were putting the extra testing on the students. The state was not mandating it. And I said something to the effect of, do you mandate the RTI program as it is? And if you do, then you are in fact mandating the testing. So they're trying to talk to them about this, that a lot of this, what's coming down from the state is what's dictating whether or not we can have any flexibility. So I am speaking out on those things. I also brought to the attention of several legislators in the meetings that I've had with the ones that will speak to me, that when you, having been in education 33 years, I have a little bit of experience. When you, at the state level, think you have a solution and you lay it down on a teacher, and then it doesn't work, it's not your fault, it's always the teacher's inability to implement it correctly, even though they were telling you it was bad to begin with. And then instead of removing that program, you layer another one on top of it. And then when that doesn't work, you layer another. And I told him, I said, teachers you're treating them like camels. And there's going to be a point, you ever heard the straw that broke the camel's back? And it's one of the reasons I think that teachers are leaving the profession, is they can't actually teach, because there are so many mandates coming down from the state under the accountability. We see this not just in Tennessee, it's happening all across the nation under these accountability programs. So, Mr. Tomlinson, I am standing up for these kids to the best of my ability, but it's going to take everyone calling them and asking questions and asking them what they're doing. And I'm going to be honest with you, I see both sides of this voucher program. Coming from a state that implemented it, coming from a private school that I was director over, and the scholarship program. I'm not a fan of it, and I get blasted for it because I'm supposedly, I'm a conservative and I'm supposed to follow the line or whatever that's supposed to be. I don't support the vouchers for a number of reasons, but one of the main reasons is because I don't want private schools to come under the dictates that will change how they run things in their own school, and they just end up being like what we are in the public realm, where everything is dictated by the state. So I want to protect homeschoolers, I want to protect private schools, and then I want to fight for flexibility in the public schools so we can do our job and do 90%. I'm going to tell you right now, Wilson County has a great school system. Not many people, if this passes, not many people are going to utilize it. We saw that in Louisiana. Most of it's going to occur in those districts, and that's what I mean by I see both sides of it. When you sit down with a New Orleans parent and they tell you how dangerous it is for their kids to go to that school and they just want some options, and there's no options for them, you have a heart for them too. So I can see both sides of those equations. But here's the arguments you're going to hear, and I want to tell you how I've responded to them. Number one, we need the free market. That's that free market argument on why we should have vouchers. Well, part of my degree was economics. It's not free market when you use tax dollars. So that argument doesn't fit. The other argument is we need competition. It needs to be a business model. Show me one business that goes out there and says, competitors come into my market. Not one business is going to have a model that says bring in all of the competition you can. It's a consumer model. The competition is a consumer model. But children are not commodities. So that business model is different when you're dealing with humans than it is when you're dealing with widgets. So I know I'm going to get blasted for this, but vouchers are not the answer. I've watched it happen in Louisiana. It might help a very small group of people who need the help, by the way. They need that. They're in failing school systems and they need some help. We need to find a better way to help them. And so that's what I'm trying to do when I go up there, is I'm trying to advocate for everyone. Thank you.
I just want to say,
Dr. Myers, I really appreciate those comments. And I know that you're down there on a regular basis. And I appreciate the knowledge that you bring back and you can share with us and everything. I agree with everything you said there tonight. And it's not fair that you might get blasted for this or I get blasted for it, either one. But the position that we're in, we've got to step out there And if we don't step out there, then we're not doing what we need to do. And I appreciate you willing to be able to step out there and take that fight on, head on. And I think this whole board feels the same way. And Mr. Luttrell, when you get the language and you don't like it, you bring it to us, and I imagine you'll have 7 signatures. I would think you would be. I would hope you would be, and I think you will be, because I think everybody on this board is here for the right reason.
I want to say also on the issue of the state mandate versus the local testing, and the idea that we are the ones responsible for increases in testing. This district has been very responsive in the 3 years plus that I've been on this board. One of the things that I asked in the last year and a half was for us to look at TE21, and are we using it too much? Do we really need to have another one that close together? And I felt heard. And we, as a district, have reduced the local optional testing. Now, we still have to do the screeners. And, depending on the screener that you use, it might take more time or less time or whatever. But I feel like we've got a really high quality screener. And that with the changes that have been made in the last 6 months to the way that we have to identify students, it's important that we have a very high quality screener. So I know I have heard some of the complaints that the screener takes a long time, but it's a much higher quality screener than what we were using before. And that's been compensated for by reducing the local optional testing that we were doing. And I have heard from both teachers and parents who very much appreciate that we have taken that step as a district. So I want to say, well done, Wilson County, for listening to parents on that and reducing what we had the power to reduce. And I hope that the legislators will hear that and listen to that, because the parents aren't just saying it to us. They're saying it to them too. They're not just saying get rid of the local optional testing. They want less testing overall. And so that's what we have to continue to do, is to continue to speak. Parents need to continue to speak and to make sure that they're heard by the legislators.
And just to piggyback off that, one of the things as a teacher that I found with the increased testing is you lose instructional time. So by the time I retired and left the classroom, I was losing 6 to 8 weeks instruction in my former state. 6 to 8 weeks. That's almost 2 months of instruction, because you have to have pre, and you have to have practice, and you have to have this, and you have to have that. All state mandated, by the way. And so that is my passion is, and I think I've made that clear, instruction, instruction, instruction. Kids can't learn if they're not being instructed. So yes, I'd like to know why we can't see the test.
Amen.
Because Massachusetts had a model in the 1990s that allowed their citizens, their teachers, and their students to see their test. It can be done. I didn't say it was easy, but if we can, and I'm bringing that up to legislators as well.
Maybe that's the resolution we need to write too.
I would I have brought this to them several times. There is a model out of Massachusetts. It was done before. If we can look at that model and allow parents to see what their kids are being tested on, teachers to know for a fact what their kids are being tested on and evaluated on, because how they pass that test is going to determine the teacher evaluation. That is something I've been really, every time I speak to a legislator, why can't we see the test? I'm trying, I don't know where I'm going to get with it, but I'm working on it.
Wilson County is transparent about what the kids do in the classroom and on our testing. It is the state test that parents cannot see. Public tax dollars should have the same accountability for education, no matter where they're spent. And in watching all of this occur, I won't say who I heard say this, but I did hear someone say parents are going to be the accountability measure in certain locations. And that just ran all over me, thinking about our 3rd and 4th grade parents who were, specifically our 3rd grade parents, when it was a single data point saying my child can read. That single data point did not determine that they can't read. They can read. If parents are the accountability measure for one place, it should be for the other. If that's not acceptable for the public school system, for the parents to be the accountability measure, then it's not for somewhere else. Accountability should be the same, period. And talking about public school, home school, private schools, that's school choice right there. And keeping them different so parents have a choice, I support that as well. But when you start mixing public funds in those different locations, it needs to be the same accountability measures, period.
I'm not concerned as much about the private schools, and we know what kind of track record they got. They're producing good students. They're making good citizens, and I don't have a problem with that. I guess the thing that really, Jeff, and you talked about knowing more about it, the thing that bothers me and what a little that I've been told is that some of these people may go out here and decide that they want to start their own school and take that money, and I don't know what kind of policies or stuff is in place that's going to regulate that. There could be. I might fill out a form and turn one in, and Brother Larry's Loose Change Cathedral, and start operating out of my basement and getting $7,000, $9,000 a year, what it's going to be. Bring me in 10, 15 kids. We can talk about stuff. That's what worries me. Is we may have all these places spring up, and they're in it just for making money. Not really worried about the education. That needs to be determined. What kind of rules and regulations are they going to put on it?
And I do think some of the right discussions are starting to happen. In some states, what they do when they bring the voucher plan is they say you can't qualify for a voucher unless you're coming from a public school the previous year. To try to, but there's all kind of things. At the end of the day, there has to be accountability in all areas. Is that a concern? Now, I've made this statement. If you show me someone that is teaching better, having better results than we are, and when everything's the same, I'll send a team there tomorrow. I don't care if charter school, private school, home school. But how are you going to know that if you're not evaluating everybody with the same accountability? So for years we've heard we want to put accountability so that we improve education. But we're coming up and we're talking about doing something that has financial implications for the entire state. But by the way, you're not going to be under the accountability that the public school is. I've never heard of a government program that you can take government dollars and not have to answer somebody. If there's one, so please tell me. It's amazing to me that accountability is not on the table. Now, maybe we'll get there. Maybe when we see the bill. And that's why I hate to talk about it, because I want to give everybody the benefit of the doubt. But it's unbelievable. I mean, to think that we would be talking about a new program when our revenues are declining. I've been watching not just the education piece of legislation, but the economic and some of the reports that you've set through. You've talked about on what's happening with revenue. How can we be talking about, I've heard numbers first year, 150 billion potentially. I mean, it's astronomical to think where these numbers can go. That's what's happened in Arizona. Major trouble from funding and not having an accountability piece. I'm really just amazed that it's getting. These are the things that should be on the front end.
Now, you brought up Arizona. Well, the whole idea behind, and that's one of the models that's being promoted. However, currently they are looking at putting accountability on those organizations that have already taken the dollars when they told them they would not have accountability. So this is one of the main reasons why I am not a fan of vouchers, is because there's always somewhere down the line going to be strings. All you have to do is change the administration for the promises to be broken. I'm coming from a place where the accountability was in your business, and that's my problem. I don't want private schools, and this is what I have told private school people, don't take more than 5% of your budget in these funds, because when this, not if, but when the strings come, you have the ability to back out of the program and not have your school, if it happens to pass, be careful, because if you let 50% of your school, if that school becomes 50% dependent on government dollars, they've got you. You either have to figure out how to come up with 50% of your budget so you can stay independent, or you're going to have to do with this, then you're just another state school. So that's one of my big pushes on this is I want schools to have autonomy. I know we can't in the public school, we have, but if you take $1 from the government, you're going to be somewhere down the line under some accountability, and I hope that people understand that. And you brought that up, Mr. Luttrell, and it is absolutely correct. So if they're talking about the Arizona model, they're already talking about bringing all these accountability pieces in. So it's not a if, it's a when.
I will say, when I was at Rutland, to Carrie's and Beth's point, we had a teacher that counted one year. After STAR testing, T21, and state testing, it was 9 weeks of testing, which did take away from teaching time, because you have to rearrange your whole schedule just to do the testing. But so I am glad that we've...
The test starts at the end of April.
Right, and
the
I
test
am...
isn't at the end of May, you know? So
Correct.
There's 4 more weeks that we're not.
So I am glad that we have taken away some of that. But also, to your point about it being a business model, and something Mr. Luttrell said, when you run a business, you get to decide what you have in your business. But in the school system, public school system, we take them all. We teach them all. We love them all. We don't get to pick and choose. So you cannot run a public school system as a business. It just can't happen.
I don't want to pick and choose. And like Dr. Meyer said, I think it's my favorite quote of the night is children are not commodities.